So Jupiter then into Scorpio. This is where it becomes much deeper. It's similar to Taurus, where there's a certain stubbornness towards this optimism, where it's like optimism becomes darker, it becomes more inside, it's more internalized transformation. The process is always about that Plutonian thing where Jupiter becomes. It's almost like the light of Jupiter becomes dimmed, but through shadow. So this is why we get into shadow work. So when you get into Jupiter, people who have Jupiter placements in Scorpio enjoy a lot of that venturing into real taboo things, the occult, sex, taxes as well. People probably, I bet you, people who have Jupiter in Scorpio enjoy paying taxes, doing taxing people, creating different ideas, and especially let's say if you have Jupiter conjunct Uranus and Mercury with Jupiter, you're highly innovative. Even the sun there, it's creative, it's innovative towards, but in Scorpio it makes it sort of like, oh my goodness, you get into sort of like deep, really to the core, trauma based. It's not even taxes. More like that's like, you don't want it to be superficial. Especially if Pluto there conjunct Jupiter, even just Pluto by itself conjunct Jupiter, you have this sort of realistic, to the core, genuine understanding of what optimism has to be, especially if you have it in Scorpio. So that's what it is. So people who enjoy also working in what do you call those then? Mortuaries, because there's nothing meaningful about it. Mortuaries, or like
for those who are gone, right?
Yeah. Oh no, not just mortuaries, but the what do you call those?
Memory?
No, the ones where you
Funeral homes?
Yeah, funeral homes. Yes, because they get to help people. But funeral homes with a spiritual aspect to it. So most people go think of Scorpio as like this. Oh, it's a dark sign. It's all that stuff. It's all about vengeance. No, in Jupiter, what happens is, in this case, if Jupiter was in Scorpio, it sheds a light into that area and makes it sort of like expansive, right? Now we go into Jupiter in Sagittarius, where it's right at home. So right off the bat, Jupiter and Sagittarius people these are the people I would say that literally have no boundaries. No boundaries at all. Pure optimism. Pure
Sagittarius?
Sagittarius, yeah. But Jupiter in Sagittarius, because it's right at home, there's a sort of like push toward that Sagittarian coloring, that sort of that how it is, like that sort of the why and how what your person does, and it makes them very, there's sort of like unlimited faith in a way. Like it's just like, people who have Sun Jupiter in Sagittarius, as an example, would probably be in any sort of like group that is. It could be religion, it could be any sort of faith, it could be anything, as long as it's like venturing into that. Probably also sometimes maybe they might get into different types, because they're trying to explore. They're hungry and thirsty for. It's not just knowledge, it's high. So apparently the video I was taking while on the phone was cut short. I don't know how that happened, but so where was I? I was talking about Jupiter in Sagittarius, and it's just like this unlimited sort of faith. I was talking about that. It was just like ongoing sort of energy, that it's like it's right at home, so I know exactly what to do with optimism and things that we do that we actually enjoy. With Sagittarius, kind of there's like just no limit. There's like sort of like let things be as it is. And then there's also kind of like I think people who it's Jupiter and Sagittarius love to travel. That's one of those things. They love foreign things, or at least going to foreign things, and venturing into unknown, very business, probably like I wouldn't say necessarily business oriented, but there's this push for that. There's a kind of like, not really push, it's not assertiveness, it's just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, 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 okay, cool, yeah, yeah. Of course, that just means like it's always like a yes man when it comes to business ventures, any sort of opportunity. Opportunist is basically Jupiter, but in Sagittarius, it's really out there. Particularly also with like sports, people with that, they love kind of active things, specifically anything that will make them feel like they're heading in an outward direction, so growth when they feel like doing that. So it really feeds that sort of that personality, that part of the person, especially if it's Sun Jupiter conjunct in Sagittarius. Jupiter in Capricorn are more like grounded people. They're more like, it's kind of like Jupiter conjunct Saturn in a way, sort of like I have that placement. But there's a limit to how much it'll go, but it sort of feels a bit like any earth sign that Jupiter would be in, and that would mean ambition, like hard work, things that have a lot to do with. I was talking to my dad before this was all like reeling in from the whole, like, sometimes disappointment is an emotion, right? So it's okay, it happens. But so anyways, Jupiter in Capricorn is about ambition and goes for anything that will make them feel like successful, anything to do with, yes, there's also business, but it's more like for the sake of humanity. It's a lot of it is done through, little by little, kind of step by step processing of, it's a different type of faith again, like, because it's Saturn ruled that Capricorn is in, but it's more Saturn, which is the faith thing, which is also kind of karmic. But in Capricorn, it's slightly different. The signs behave differently than the planets. The planets, without the planets, there's no Sagittarius, there's no astrology. So Jupiter in Capricorn is all about working with probably people who really enjoy successes in something that achieves a specific goal through material, matter, physical means. Anything sort of like fine. Maybe they love venturing into things that are like, fine dining, wealth, basically. It's a little bit more than Taurus, because Taurus is all about that pleasure stuff. But with this case, it's more about, I just gotta achieve something, even if that means doing the little things and sort of sacrificing sort of certain things, and that they're okay with that. Especially if they have the sun there as well, they kind of push it. Especially even also moon, so they have a bit more like practical approach to it. Probably also anything to do with, like, I was talking to my dad about it, and it's like something to do with like old folks home or something to do with, he started mentioning this like a realtor, real estate sort of business, but that's more of a Cancer thing or fourth house. But with the 10th house, or rather Capricorn, specifically Capricorn, it's really about that faith in that challenge that they'll achieve something by taking it very, 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 very slowly. Very slowly. Probably not as slow as Taurus, but definitely in that direction. What else is there? Tradition is also part of that. It's a little bit like Cancer, which is about tradition, but more like, not so much tradition, but more like things that need to maintain its form, so that it's conservation, right? That's Capricorn. But definitely refined stuff, a lot of things that are based on wisdom. So it's not so much about achieving success per se in terms of like money, but more just success itself. Achieving, just that it's really about the discipline, that hard work that is combined. When Jupiter comes into Capricorn, it's like there's this sort of a humanitarian approach to it. So it's bigger than myself. it's my reputation for people. It's a very 10th house thing. But it's also kind of ego related as well, sort of. That's more of a 10th house thing, but yeah. So now we go into Jupiter in Aquarius, which is like all about society, all about freedom, all about changes, all about different, all about the future, all about technology. So anything to do with that, they'll want to be happy with it. Sci-fi, people who get into like scientific research or science itself, that venture into sort of maybe even business in that. A business in science being like maybe in a university. That's more of a, that's also Sagittarius because of higher education, but it can be with Aquarius. But as long as it's like research, as long as it's as long as it's innovative, as long as it feels like it's doing something for mankind, for the greater good, for the vast majority of people, or rather everyone. But it can also become, there's also another side to Aquarius, right? It's not just Uranus ruled, it's also Saturn ruled. So that means there's a bit of Capricorn feel to that, where it's like limitations, conservatism. So they might get into businesses or any sort of, they might venture into things that actually create limit. They might see limit and, limitations and conservation as a form of